on a quiet stretch of sun-bleached prairie, where the dust rose in soft spirals and the world felt both endless and unbearably small. Clara tightened her grip on her children's hands as they walked the long dirt road away from the only home they had ever known, a worn wagon creaking behind them with what little they owned. The morning wind carried a chill that bit at their bare feet, and though she tried to hide it, fear sat heavy on her chest as she imagined reaching the town on foot, hungry and exhausted, without knowing if anyone there would help a widowed mother with nothing left but hope. Her son Liam kept glancing up at her, sensing her worry, while little Rose wrapped her arms around Clara's skirt with every distant sound, afraid that something might leap from the tall grass. Clara had made the decision to leave after the final storm, tore what remained of their cabin roof straight into the sky. And the crops, her late husband's crops, had failed again. She couldn't watch her children starve or shiver or wonder why. Other families seemed blessed, while theirs kept breaking piece by piece. So Clara wrote a letter, tucked it under the lantern she left on the old table, and walked away from the place where she once loved, laughed, dreamed, and buried the man who had promised to take care of them until death parted them. She wanted to start over, even if she didn't know how. But just when they rounded the bend and spotted dust rising far behind them, she turned and saw a tall figure approaching on horseback, riding hard, his hat pressed low against the wind. It was Ethan Walker, the rancher who lived miles beyond the ridge, a man of few words but quiet strength, someone who had checked on her family through drought, sickness, and the long, cold winters. He was the kind of man who fixed fences without asking for payment, who left flour and beans at her door without signing his name, and who tipped his hat whenever. She caught him watching her with that mixture of worry and tenderness he tried to hide. Clara's heart pounded as he slowed his horse, dust swirling around him like the breath of the earth itself. "Clara," he called, voice deep, almost hurt. "Where are you headed?" She hesitated, swallowing the lump in her throat before saying softly, "Town." Ethan looked at the wagon, at her children, at the exhaustion in her shoulders, and something inside him shifted like a storm ready to break. He dismounted with a quiet sigh, approaching them with careful steps. Liam stood in front of his mother protectively, and Ethan's eyes softened at the boy's bravery. "Can you take us to town?" Clara finally asked, her voice trembling despite her attempt to sound strong. She didn't want pity, she wanted a chance, a beginning, a way to keep her children fed. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, the wind brushing strands of her hair across her cheeks as the prairie stretched silent around them. Then he stepped closer, kneeling to Rose's eye level before rising to... Clara again. His expression held a mixture of concern and something deeper, something he had buried for far too long. "I'll take you," he said quietly, "but only if you promise to come back home." Clara's breath caught. She hadn't expected that, not from him, not from anyone. "Home," she whispered. "Ethan, I don't have a home anymore." He shook his head, jaw tightening with conviction. "You have one at my ranch, you and the kids. I won't let you walk away from safety. Not again." The wind rustled the dry weeds like a whisper of encouragement. Clara blinked back tears she didn't want him to see. She had spent so long holding herself together that kindness felt like a blow. But Ethan wasn't demanding. He was offering. Offering what? A place, a future, a chance at something she thought she had lost forever. "Please," Ethan said softly, his voice cracking with emotion he rarely showed. "Don't go where you'll be alone. Come back. Let me take care of you the way. I should have tried to sooner." Clara looked at her children, tired, scared, hopeful, and then at the long, empty road ahead. For the first time in months, something warm flickered in her chest. A possibility. A place where they wouldn't just survive, they might actually live again. Ethan lifted Rose into his arms while helping Clara and Liam up onto the wagon seat, securing their belongings with the quiet efficiency of a man who cared far more than his steady hands revealed. And as the horses started forward, Clara felt the tight knot of dread inside her loosen for the first time since the night the storm had stolen their roof and nearly their hope. They moved slowly, the wagon wheels crunching on the gravel, while Ethan rode alongside them, occasionally glancing over to make sure she was steady and warm enough. And after a long stretch of silence, Clara finally found the courage to ask the question trembling in her heart. "Why does it matter to you if we leave?" A question Ethan seemed almost afraid to answer, for he kept his eyes fixed on the horizon before exhaling deeply, saying, "Because I've watched you fight every battle alone, Clara, and I can't stand the thought of you facing another one without someone beside you," his voice low, trembling in a way she had never heard before. The children listened quietly, both sensing that something important was happening, something bigger than the road under their wheels or the dusty afternoon sky. And as they approached the small town nestled between the hills, Clara felt an unexpected surge of fear that she was stepping into a place full of judgmental eyes and cold answers. Fear that someone would tell her she wasn't good enough or strong enough to start over. Fear that the world would turn her away again. But Ethan must have sensed her panic, because he slowed his horse and said gently, "You're not here to beg for help, Clara. You're here because you're brave enough to keep going. And that's something no one can take from you." And for a moment,